welcome to the Unstoppable Freedom Podcast. I'm Jimmy Page, and today we're going to talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about, getting prepared for disruption. Some refer to this as prepping, and a lot of people think that those people are crazy, and they have all moved to the mountains and live completely off the grid. And while you know what, there are people like that have maybe taken self-reliance to the extreme, with all of the chaos in the world, taking some steps to be able to weather some storms sure does seem like a good idea to a growing number of people. And we've got a familiar guest. His name is Joe Rieck. He's the VP of Sales for Ready Alliance Group, an organization whose mission is to empower people through self-reliance. He's been at this for a long time, starting and growing emergency food companies for over 15 years. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jimmy, it's so much fun to be on with you again. Thanks for having me on again.
Let's go. You know, last time, if you remember, you had a Jeep Gladiator in the background just to taunt me because you know I'm a Jeep lover.
Right. Yeah, I knew you were. So we have what we call our rapid response vehicles. And so these are Jeep Gladiators that have been retrofitted with a bunch of different things that can help out in different emergencies, different disaster situations. So they have like the oversized mud tires on there. They got the racks that can carry the fuel cans. They got the totes in the back. We even have chainsaws in them, first aid kits, things like that. And we take these rapid response vehicles and we deploy them along with our fleet of semis if we ever respond to a disaster, whether it be a tornado, whether it be a hurricane, or whether it be an earthquake. So we can help provide support to our employees that are out there passing out emergency supplies, getting people water, getting them critical food that they need, helping rebuild different infrastructures, and just being of assistance any way that we can. And so, yeah, we do have a little fleet of our emergency response vehicles, along with our fleet of semis that we use to transport our product to our different warehouses throughout the country.
It's amazing. I mean, one of my earliest introductions to My Patriot Supply was when I ordered product, because, I'll talk a little bit about this in the show today, but about my journey towards preparation. I had a 90-day challenge from a guy named Tucker Max, who you've probably heard of. He's a self-described doomer optimist. He believes that
I like that doomer optimist.
Right? He sees the signs of what's happening. He understands that there is, to some extent or another, a controlled demolition of our society, but yet he feels like he can take the necessary steps to get prepared to survive it, and then on the back end really thrive coming out of it. So he challenged me to 90 days to start getting ready. And that's when I came across My Patriot Supply, because I started looking at food and water and other survival equipment and food and all of that. And it was a big part of my journey to get ready. So let me ask you this right away. Why is it?
Before you entered the rabbit hole of emergency preparedness, right? Because everybody assumes that emergency preparedness is just food and water.
Yes.
But really, food and water, they're just facets of emergency preparedness. Yes. And I love what you said, though, Jimmy. You said you started your preparedness journey.
Yes.
Emergency preparedness, it's not a destination, but it is a journey.
Right.
It takes time to build up our supplies. It takes time to get the resources that we need. And I want everybody to know, and this is what we tell our customers all the time as well, is you got to work at it. It's a progress thing. You're working at it constantly. You're adding to it. You're discovering more items that you and your family might need for any type of a situation. And so I don't ever want people to feel discouraged or feel like it's too overwhelming. It's not, but you just got to get started. So sorry, I had to throw that out there.
Well, that's great advice too. And that, we'll talk more about that. But I remember at the very beginning of this, you hit it on the head. I felt overwhelmed. I felt unprepared. I'm like, oh my gosh, we had just come out of COVID. I realized that I was completely unprepared for any level of disruption, any major disruption or even small disruption. So I felt overwhelmed. And that's when I said to Tucker, and then I had the same conversation with you. I was like, hey, wait a minute. I feel like I'm so far behind. What do I do? And you all were like, hey, just take the first step on this journey and then build and make progress over time.
Absolutely. It's like the acronym that we learned in college, the KISS, the Keep It Simple Stupid.
Yeah.
It's the same approach for emergency preparedness. What we tell our customers, every single day is look how many people you need to provide food for decide what works best for you and your family as far as how long of a supply you want to have.
Yes.
And let's get started getting our bases covered.
Yes.
Food, water, shelter, warmth. And then we can just build over time those different areas. So that way you can have that peace of mind and that confidence, Jimmy.
Yeah.
That way, if you ever are in a situation, you can handle that situation as the protector of your family or as the sole provider, or as the provider to make sure that you and your kids are taken care of.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it's all about. It's about taking care of our families.
Yeah. It's a much bigger purpose than just hoarding away supplies so that you can weather a storm. It really is about protecting your family, providing what they need during those times. And I remember too, in my earliest exploration of this, people started talking about bug out bags. And I understand the purpose of bug out bags, but in my further review of trying to make sure that my family was safe and provided for, one of the earliest things that you realize is if you can maintain your home, that is by far the most important decision that you can make, is to maintain the normalcy, the protective environment of your home rather than disappearing, unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah, I mean, everything depends on the circumstances.
Yeah.
And so you got to be prepared for what those different circumstances are.
Yeah.
Obviously the best place to be is inside of your home.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, you have a roof over your head, you have protection and shelter from the elements.
Yes.
You may not have power, you may not have water, but at least you have that shelter aspect in place. And, when we're dealing, especially with kids, the idea is try to make life as normal as possible. Mm-hmm. And this was something that I didn't really understand until I became a dad 16 years ago. When I first got started with the emergency food space, I was just like you, well, let's get our 72-hour kits.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we have like our beans, our wheat, our rice, things like that in those big 55-gallon drums that my parents had. But when I became a dad, my whole paradigm shifted, because I wanted to be able to provide things for my daughter that she would always have, because kids, they don't need to know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
They don't need to know that dad lost his job. They don't need to know that inflation is skyrocketing and that we might have a financial crisis on our hands. The only thing that kids really need to know is that they're safe, they're protected, and they have the things that they need to have without having to worry about all of the adult stuff.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, my whole paradigm shifted that, okay, I want to be able to continue living how I'm living. So that way my daughter doesn't realize that we're living in a crappy or difficult situation.
I love that. You're really controlling the narrative and you're controlling the emotion of the situation. Kids are not prepared to handle kind of some of the reality of life at that stage. And I love that. You want to make life as normal as possible. And that really does elevate the purpose of preparation, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it opens up the doors to so many different avenues that you can take.
Yeah.
We talk about food here at My Patriot Supply a lot because that's our strongest forte. But along with the food, well, now we got to think about water. So what are we going to do about water in those situations? What tools, what things can we implement or incorporate into our own personal supplies that's going to help us get that water aspect of it?
Yeah.
The next piece is going to be, well, how are we going to keep warm, or what are we going to do to cool us off to make life more comfortable at that point? And again, your mind just you go down that rabbit hole with emergency preparedness. And I find it really, really fun and exciting and new.
Yeah.
Others may think it's a little bit overwhelming, but again, you don't have to feel overwhelmed because there's companies like My Patriot Supply that can lay out a plan, help you and your family get the items and the resources and the knowledge that you need in order to execute those plans.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it really has been that simple. And you even have articles on your website that kind of talk through some of the most important things and the most important steps to take right off the bat. So let's shift gears just a little bit because I know that you're aware of what's going on in the world. And I know that it's benefiting your company, obviously, because the more disruption, the more people look for solutions. What concerns you most with what's going on around us? I've been following the controlled demolition, so to speak, of our food system with the food plant fires. There's plenty of articles on your website that talk about this. What concerns you most?
Well, honestly, this is what I say when I go on different TV programs when they're asking about what the status of life is, because we try to keep a pretty good pulse
Yeah.
on what's happening in the world. We pay attention to different political events that are going on. We pay attention to supply chains. We pay attention to the commodity market, all of these things. And really, Jimmy, I hate to say it, I really do, because the fuse has been lit. And it's only a matter of time before this destruction happens. And we're talking about what we believe in as Americans. It's interesting because our customers that call us up and people who are looking into emergency preparedness, they're not stupid.
Yeah.
They're not. They can see that the fabric of our American culture, our society is being torn apart thread by thread.
Yes.
Whether it's systematic, whether it's because of, influences outside of our control, but it really feels like there is this concentrated effort to disrupt and to change our values and the way that we live.
Yeah.
And when all of these things happen, you take a step back and you realize, holy cow, look how crazy of a world we live in right now and how dependent we are upon different systems that provide us with our livelihood.
Yeah.
You look at what happened during COVID, and COVID was a great exercise for people to get their eyes opened up.
Yeah.
And I say that it was great because it forces you to really reevaluate your life and your preparedness.
Yeah.
Whether or not you can weather those types of difficult storms.
Yeah.
And the whole world went through COVID. Like everybody kind of understood how fragile our system is. And this is something that we talked about last time I was on, was people began to realize how critical our infrastructure is when it comes to our grocery stores.
Yeah.
Most grocery stores today practice JIT, which is just-in-time inventory. From a business standpoint, that makes total sense. But from a practical standpoint, it puts us, the consumers, at their mercy.
Yeah.
And sorry, Jimmy, that's not one way that I want to live. I want to be responsible for my own success. I don't want to be dependent on somebody else for the basic needs to live day to day.
Well, and I just, let me jump in there. I remember the just-in-time response to COVID at the grocery stores, which for me, just-in-time felt like maybe a 3-day lead. It felt like maybe they had enough in the pipeline to fill the shelves for about 3 days. And after that, everything was wiped out. And I think for me, that was a real wake-up call just for some basic supplies. I mean, we were fine, basic supplies. And I think what surprised me most about the COVID ordeal was not the virus, because if you were paying attention at all, you realized that there were some pretty easy ways to counteract the virus, but
to protect yourself,
right?
Everything like that, and the narrative around COVID too. That's a whole other podcast discussion. Is the narrative around COVID? But people that had common sense application towards it, they understood and could navigate through those times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, I think they got their eyes opened up as to how critical it was.
Yes.
I mean, going to the grocery store, expecting to go home and get your stovetop meals, your bag of beans or your cereal boxes or even your meat and your poultry.
Yes.
When you don't have those items in the grocery stores, what do you do?
Right.
And so it helped us reevaluate what we're doing in those types of situations.
Yeah. And it's interesting now, too, because obviously there's disruptions to the supply chain. There's disruptions. My gosh, there's been tremendous problems with farms and with food plant fires and with just thousands and thousands of animal lives being lost in these fires. And, there's all kinds of stuff there. And there's this upward pressure on food inflation. And I saw some numbers that the average food inflation is somewhere around 11.5%, give or take. But I'm telling you, I'm not seeing 11.5%. And I don't think most Americans are. When I go to the grocery store now and I fill up a cart, and it is at least 25 to 50% more expensive than I used to pay. So I don't know where the 11% is coming from, but it certainly isn't happening in reality. Are you seeing food inflation like that?
Oh, 100%. And everybody across the nation realizes that. And I think the reason why is when we hear on these news articles, we do hear inflation is up 10%. What they fail to realize, though, is with the supply chain,
Yeah.
at every stop of that process, people are adding, costs to it. And
Yeah.
so by the time that it hits the end consumer, yeah, we're paying 40, 50%
Yes.
higher than we were even 8 months ago.
Mm.
And so every step along the way costs us more money, plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that isn't really talked about, because when we hear about inflation numbers, we're talking about the whole aggregate, all of the entire grain supply as a whole.
Yeah.
But they fail to go into it really how it impacts us as the end consumer, because every stop along the way, from the farm to the truck to the
Yes.
processing plants to the trucks again, to the distribution centers, and then to the local grocery stores, you're passing product down 7 or 8 different times.
Yeah.
And everybody along the way is taking their piece of that pie, which leaves us, the end consumers, paying the higher prices.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is most remarkable with your operations is that your prices have really not appreciably changed since the beginning of that. And I'm curious about that. I mean, obviously you are experiencing disruptions on the supply side. You are experiencing higher costs on your inputs. How are you able to continue to offer your products really without that significant of a price disruption?
It's a lot of work. It really is. And I say that because I know what's been involved to try to maintain our prices to where it still makes sense for the average family to be able to purchase.
Yeah.
And I understand that, a lot of people, a lot of families are living paycheck to paycheck, and we try to do our best to take care of what we consider our people, our customers. And so the owner and the executive team, we've all done a very good job is trying to make sure that if we have these increases in cost, we've tried to absorb a majority of them, because we still want to be able to provide something of value for people, and something of value that they can actually afford.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit different shift in the thought process, because again, this is an item that most families feel like, I'm never going to need it. So why am I going to waste my hard-earned money for something that I may not need?
Yeah.
And, my counter, response to that is, I feel the same way about car insurance.
Yeah.
Like I don't buy car insurance hoping that I'm going to get into an accident. I don't buy car insurance being like, well, I guess it doesn't matter if I run into this car right now. It doesn't matter because I'll be taken care of. You know what I mean?
Right.
No, that's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to, just in case those things happen, things outside of our control, we can get a little bit of help financially to help repair our cars, to help fix the damaged cars if they're involved in accidents. The same concept is for emergency food and getting prepared.
Yeah.
It's not like all of us are just waiting for the government to fail so we can, hoard all this food. No, this is insurance policy for us to stock up on something that we can put our hard-earned money behind.
Yeah.
For example, like the long-term food storage. Jimmy, it has up to a 25-year shelf life. So literally, this is something that you can get now.
Yes.
You can put it away and it'll be there when you and your family need it, if you ever do need it.
Yeah.
And because it is a commodity item, let's go back into economics. Commodities, what happens with the price of grains, the price of food over time? The value of that stuff increases.
Yeah.
So now that emergency food that you bought during 2020, guess what? It's going to be worth a lot more 5 years down the road than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But the idea is to get it now while we can get the supplies now, because there is going to come a time, and I hate to even say this, that we're not going to be able to get the supplies that we are normally used to getting.
Yeah.
You look at what's going on in the world outside of the United States, even, let's focus on the Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
With Europe, with Ukraine, those guys, which a lot of people don't really realize, those guys are one of the largest exporters of grain.
Yes.
33% of total global exports come out of the breadbasket of Europe, which is Ukraine. And since Russia invaded the Ukraine, we have had a 33% drop in the amount of actual grain that the world can use and consume.
It's amazing.
And just that alone is driving costs up significantly.
Yeah. And then you see, a lot of the new regulations on farms and farm practices and fertilizers. The disruption in the fertilizers has caused yields to be down tremendously. And then now we see that a lot of the Dutch farmers are being put out of business by their own government. They're buying their farms and then they're forbidding those farmers to continue to farm anywhere in the EU. So there's a lot of
that's happening here in the United States, believe it or not. In fact, I've had several customers call me up and say, "Hey, look, Joe, I'm a farmer, and a farm right down the road for me, the government's paying them not to grow food." And you tell me how does that even happen?
Yeah.
When the government says, "Hey, we know you have this opportunity to plant all this food, don't plant it."
Gosh.
So they miss out on these money incentives not to plant their food. And you tell me how is that even a good idea?
Right.
How does that benefit people? It doesn't. And it kind of goes back to the whole idea that, systematically things are being put into place that are really going to ruin the fabric of our lives.
Yeah.
And people got to take note. People got to start understanding and kind of start opening up their eyes a little bit that this is happening. It's happening here in the United States.
Yeah.
If it's happening over there in Europe, it's going to happen here sooner or later.
Yeah. And, I think one of the things I say all the time, and I know you say it as well, the time to prepare for disruption is before the disruption happens. But there's something about human nature that procrastinates. Like I've heard of something called normalcy bias, and I think I have it too, where you look around you and you see that your life is pretty much the same as it's been for the last 3, 4, 5 years. And you cannot conceive that some of these negative forces are happening or some of this potential disruption is going to happen. You just can't see it. What is it? Why do most people procrastinate when it comes to prepping?
I think it goes back to human nature.
Yeah.
People don't see a need to want to do something until it absolutely affects them. That's the biggest motivator.
Yeah.
You talk to people in California that live on the West Coast who are susceptible to earthquakes. A majority of the residents in California have experienced an earthquake and they know what it's like and what happens. And so by default, because they have that experience, they know that they need to have their 72-hour kits.
Yeah.
They know that they need to have their bug out bags. And so for those areas geographically, they're more inclined to be prepared. But also you look at people like in the Midwest who don't experience hurricanes, who don't experience earthquakes. Well, they experience a lot of tornadoes.
Yeah.
So they have to prepare differently than the rest of us. Yeah. But it's always out of a need. Something is causing them pain that they got to fix and they got to figure it out. Otherwise, they're going to continue to live with that pain. And until they feel that pain, most people don't react to it.
Yeah, I think that's true. The more pain drives action, right? And
100%.
One of the things that I've experienced as a man of faith, as a Christian, I'll have people of faith say to me, well, prepping is it's all rooted in fear. It's a lack of faith. And I always laugh. I'm like, well, we're preparing for a lot of things. I ask them, do you have a 401k? Do you have car insurance? Do you have life insurance? Blah, blah, blah. On and on it goes. None of those things are apparently rooted in fear. Why is that a response from some people of faith?
Because when you think about the whole preparedness industry as a whole, and let's go back to kind of the early beginnings, 25, 30 years ago, you were considered one of the crazies.
Yeah.
One of the guys that's kooky. Oh, that's old man Wilson. He's one of those guys that lives off the grid. He's worried about, the government coming in and taking all their stuff. He is crazy.
Yes.
That was the stigma associated with people that were wanting to get prepared.
Yeah.
And, we've come a long way from there because of the world that we live in now,
yes,
people are more inclined to get prepared because they see how fragile our systems are.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of adopting that type of a mindset. And it takes time to educate people. It takes time to show them the value of getting prepared.
Yeah.
Because again, people, I think they want the easy way out.
Yeah.
And the easy way is to say, hey, I'm just going to worry, let the Red Cross come bail me out. Or I'm going to let the government come bail me out. And I'm sorry, I don't want to be told how to live my life.
Right.
I don't want to be standing in a line to get food for my family and saying, well, you had your rations this week already, so you're done. You're cut off.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to live that way.
Yeah. And I think well, first of all, it's not the American way, right? I mean, the American way is kind of that self-reliance, that self-assertiveness. It's the idea that you can provide, that you're able to do it. And I look at it differently. I look at it as how many other people can my preparation bless? Like the fact that I have over a year's worth of food, not just for me, but for my wife and I, and also at least one or two kids, because we've got 4 kids and some of our kids might end up back. If things really come unglued, I'm hoping that everybody comes back, because then we can pool our resources and work together. But, I'm thinking in terms of, can I bless my neighbors? Can I prepare in such a way to help people in the event that they have a personal disruption, not even something on a grand scale? Could I be a blessing to them?
No, I was just going to say, that's the Christ-like attitude.
Yeah.
That's what we learn about, the 2 greatest commandments. What was it? One, love God with all your heart. The second is to love your neighbor as yourself.
Yes.
I mean, that's really what this whole purpose is about. It's about loving and caring and being compassionate for people other than ourselves. And, it's that belief, it's that mindset that I think really separates, this group of people and puts them a little bit different. And it kind of blows away that old stigmatism about emergency preparedness and those so-called preppers.
Yes.
With that particular influence, when you do it for the right reasons, you can see that the Lord will come in and bless you in ways that you never even thought.
Yes.
And, like you, Jimmy, I'm a God-fearing person. I've got my Christian background and everything like that. And I try my best to live every day and to try to help those out in need. And when you have those as your intentions and that's what you want to do for it, the Lord opens up the windows and you do get blessed.
Yeah.
And when you go about it that way, it's a whole different ballgame.
I agree. And I've always thought, listen, to whom much is given, much is required. Much is expected. Spider-Man would say, with great power comes great responsibility.
Responsibilities, absolutely.
And I think the parable of the talents, where you kind of look at the way God has blessed you, in either materially or spiritually or in relationships, you look at the ways that He's given you talents and gifts, and you say, well, how do I multiply these? And how do I become someone who does bless somebody else? And I don't, if I'm sitting in a position where I have need, then thank God there are people that are available to help. But what if I could be someone who could help? So it changes your paradigm a bit, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. And I'm a firm believer, Jimmy, that when you do things with good intentions, when you have your heart in the right place, good things happen.
Yeah.
And people can feel that. And that brings me to another point that we're talking about is, people have this sense inside of them. You call it the spirit, call it their intuition, call it what you want. But it seems like this happens every time we're on the verge of a major life-changing event. And, we talked a little bit earlier about COVID, and it reminded me, people that were calling us pre-COVID, we were starting to see, what was coming on the horizon from customers that were paying attention to this. And it almost seems like, for lack of a better word, it almost seems like the Lord was preparing those people ahead of COVID to get them ready for it so they could be in a way to help others. And, I remember being on the phone talking with people who would say, like, Joe, I've never thought about getting emergency food. I don't know why, but I have this feeling in my stomach, in my cart, that I just cannot get it out of my head.
Yes.
I got to do something.
Yes.
And you'd be surprised at how many people did that before the government came out and declared COVID a national pandemic.
Yes.
They just had that intuition. And you're starting to see that. We're starting to see that now, even when customers call in on the phones.
Yes.
They tell my sales reps, gosh, I don't know why, but for some reason, I just have this need that I got to get prepared. I don't know what, but I'm going to follow my intuition.
Yes.
And that's starting to happen again. And I think you're going to see here in the next little bit, you're going to see that powder keg explode.
Yeah. And, you think of, I keep thinking of the multiple industries. You mentioned that earlier, not just with the food and the supply chain, but now we're looking at banks. We're looking at some big banks that are failing. And, I saw last week that the 3 banks that have failed so far this year in total assets equal to all of the assets, all the 27 banks that failed in 2008. So, and more are coming. We already have the warning signs of this. So I think this idea of preparing, you can see what's happening, and the Bible talks about we need men and women who can understand the times and know what to do. And I think that's
Mhm.
where we sit in this moment of history is, hey, take a look around you, anticipate what's coming, and get ready.
Absolutely. You said it right there, Jimmy. Like that's what it's going to require.
Yeah.
It's going to require spreading the word of telling people and just informing them and letting them know, hey, the media does such a good job of distracting away from the real issues.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
All this talk about, the Bud Light controversy, women's playing in men's sports controversy, like that's on the news 24/7.
Yes.
They're not talking about the 14 food facilities that have been decimated or destroyed just this year alone,
Yes.
not counting about the other 32 that happened in 2022.
Yes.
You don't hear about it. You don't hear about that Putin is going to place or place bombs at a nuclear site there in Kiev. You don't hear about that.
Yes.
You don't hear that North Korea is testing new ballistic missiles almost weekly, where 5 years ago, had that happened,
Right.
I mean, the United States would have been on their front door knocking in saying, hey, what's going on? Now it just gets brushed under the rug because they're trying to shift the focus onto something else. Say, hey, look over here while we're changing things down here.
Yeah.
And if people are not aware of that, Jimmy, everybody's going to be left blindsided and just following like sheep to the slaughter.
Yeah. Yeah, it is amazing when you look at the global landscape and the lack of what I would consider the disappointing lack of American leadership. It's just stunning to me. It seems we're so distracted by things that are consequential, but are going to seem small in comparison to what's happening with the overall disruption. Let's talk in practical terms. Let's look at time frame. You mentioned the first question to ask is, well, who do we need to consider as we start to get prepared? How do you, if you're interested in getting started, how do you take a look at who you might need to be able to provide for?
Well, what we suggest when customers call in and they say, hey, look, I know I need to get some food. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
We start asking basic questions. We ask, well, how many people do you need to provide food for?
Yes.
And how long of a supply would you like to have? Because the thing is with emergency food, Jimmy, just like every family, families are different. Families have different requirements, different needs, different, things that they might tolerate, different amount of length. So there's not a one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I love about my Patriot Supply is we can put together a plan that's specific to you and your family.
Yes.
So you don't have to have that cookie cutter, package for them.
Yeah.
You can get things that work that you need for you and your family. And so one of the main questions that I would always ask to try to find out as well, how long of a supply would you feel comfortable with having for you and your family?
Yes.
Because there are some people who think that, hey, we just need it to get through, a couple of weeks until help comes, which is great. That's fine.
Yep.
Some people feel like they need to have up to a year supply because they feel like we're in the long haul.
Yeah.
And it's just discovering the needs of that particular family.
Yeah.
And then it's just a process of catering to those particular needs.
Yeah. One of the things that I discovered on my own journey was initially I said, hey, let's just get ready for 3 months. I got the 3-month long-term food storage kits that will last up to 25 years. I had immediate peace of mind. And then I started thinking, wait a minute, what if some of the kids come home? All right, well, let's double that because I could have more mouths to feed. And then I started thinking, well, what if something really goes wrong and we need more time? Wouldn't it be, 6 months, be smarter? And then what I've seen is my supplies have grown. My level of preparedness has grown. And that's been really great. But one of the things that I realized early on is that not only do I need food, not only do I need water stored and the ability to filter it, but I also need some sort of power source to be able to prepare the food. And that was a big aha moment for me. Like, hey, wait, it's great to have this food, but what if the power's out? I need an alternative, source. What you have solutions for that as well.
Oh, we do. Absolutely, we do. In fact, what's kind of a fun exercise. If you really want to test how prepared you are, Jimmy, Friday night, shut the power off to your house and don't turn it back on until Monday morning. And you tell me how your weekend is.
Yes.
Because you'll start to discover really, really fast how prepared you are.
Yes.
And that brings into another good point. Like, okay, what are you going to do about preparing your meals? What am I going to do if the power is out? And so it's those little scenarios, it's those little exercises that you can do with you and your family to really discover how you guys would fare in those types of situations.
Yeah.
And, believe it or not, My Patriot Supply, we have those answers to those questions. Like, what am I going to do for power? In fact, I got one of these little things right here, which is a little power bank.
Yes.
Believe it or not, Jimmy, this thing was our top selling item in January of 2022, I believe. Do you remember when Texas had that ice storm?
Yes.
People in Texas, they don't get ice storms very often, but they got a massive ice storm that knocked power out for several weeks. And this little guy right here was a lifesaver.
Yeah.
This is a solar powered power bank that you can set it outside in the sun. It'll take, the energy from the sun. It'll store that power up. So then all you got to do, in fact, let me do this here really quick. Let me get my phone so I can show you how quick and easy this is. So you turn that on right there. When you need to charge your cell phone, you simply take your cell phone, set it up on top of there, and it'll start charging your cell phone. See that?
Right away. That's amazing.
So just this little thing right here is a lifesaver.
Yes.
Having a couple of these in your vehicles, having a couple of these inside of inside of your food storage kit.
Yes.
It's valuable.
Yeah.
Because now you can charge your cell phone to keep in contact with family. You can get all your news sources, everything just from having power to your cell phones.
Yeah. And, I've done that same thing. So, these make great Christmas gifts. These make great birthday gifts. Now I know the kids, they all laugh at me now because I'm always getting them emergency preparation materials, whether it's a or whether it's a first aid kit, which you guys sell as well, and a whole bunch else, or it's the power block so they can keep everything juiced. Or it's in fact, this past Christmas, I made the kids get the water purification system that's sitting behind you, on the screen. Yep.
Yeah, that thing right there.
Yep. And so
but
now,
it goes beyond that too. In fact, I brought this thing right here.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you. This is what we call the Vesta heater. So this is the first self-powered space heater.
Come on.
Okay. This thing runs off of canned heat right here.
Yeah.
So each one of these cans can burn for 6 hours.
Jeez.
So the concept is you light these up, you put it inside of here. It's going to power this electrical fan back there that spins once there's heat on there. And that's going to force that warm air out and create, a little space heater for you to heat up your rooms, to heat up your home. But you take this top piece off, and guess what? Now you have a grill to be able to boil your water to get your meals prepared.
Fantastic.
So it's little things like that people are like, oh, those things are cool, but they're life-saving.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. I can't tell you how many letters we get from customers who have actually used our products and have just been so grateful that they're just like, you know what, because of you guys, I was literally saved. Like my life was saved because of your products.
Yes.
These things work. And
this
might get a little cheesy when I say this, Jimmy, but that's the reason why we do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt.
That's why we do what we do.
And I love the flexibility of it. Like I'm looking at the product. I'm like, how did I not know about this? And I'm getting one this afternoon for sure. But what I love about it is practical. It's empowering. This whole process is really empowering. And what I discovered, in disruption is you feel like a sitting duck. You feel powerless.
You feel helpless.
I don't like feeling powerless. I hate it. So I feel completely empowered. I go down into my basement and everyone thinks this is so complicated, right? So I go down into my food storage area and I'll take a video and I'll show people what I have, or we'll bring people down and show them what we have to take that negativity out of it. Like, oh, I'll never be prepared. No. Does this look doable? And then you show them and they go, oh my, I could probably get that done in 30 days. And I'm like,
it's that easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's that easy. This is all that I have to do.
Yes.
Yeah. It's breaking through that barrier of people not knowing how to get started.
Yes.
And again, if people need help how to get started,
Yes.
we're here 24/7. We have people that'll answer the phone at any hour of the day. And it's people here in our office. So you're not getting a phone call to India, somebody who has no idea about the products that's reading from a
Yes.
script. You're actually talking to employees of My Patriot Supply.
Yes.
When you call in, you can call us at 3 o'clock in the morning and place an order and talk with a specialist if you need advice or you need help doing it. And really, all we do is we just educate people.
Yeah.
We're just educators, and we just help fulfill them based on what they need and what they're wanting for their families.
Yeah. Well, I love the heart and the spirit of what you do. I love the practical nature of it too. And I think, I also love the fact that the support is so big, and that's why I love our partnership. And we'll put some links in this post so that people can go directly to the website. We have an affiliate relationship with you all, and that's been just a great blessing to us. And but what I'm passionate about getting people ready as well, about empowering people, giving them that control back, letting them know that they're capable, that they can actually prepare for these things. And in the end, it results in peace of mind. Isn't that, it really does result in that, doesn't it?
It does. And this is a story that I shared with you. I may have shared this to you the first time that we ever met was about my daughter.
Yeah.
When she actually tried emergency food for the first time, because again, as a parent, you want to keep life as simple as possible for your young kids. And you don't want them to know that, the world's on fire.
Yeah.
Right. So it reminds me of when the first time I prepared food for my daughter that I'm like, hey, if I'm going to invest my hard earned money for something that I may never, ever use, I want to make sure that my daughter's going to eat it. Yeah. Because she still is. She's 16 years old now, but she is the pickiest eater ever. So here's my advice. If you can get a 3-year-old to eat emergency food, and when she's done with her bowl, ask for more.
Yeah.
You've got a winner right there. And that's exactly what she did.
Yeah.
I sat down, I made stroganoff for her, for myself. We're eating it. I look over, she's got a noodle hanging out of her mouth, and she looks up at me and she says, "More, Dad."
More.
Right then and there, Jimmy, I'm like, okay, this is it. This is what I need to do for my family. And it's been a blessing ever since for me and my family, coming into this industry, helping people become better prepared, because like you said, we're giving people that power back.
Yes.
To make them feel valuable so they can be the captains of their own ship and not have to rely on somebody else saying, well, guess what? You get food today. You don't get food today.
Yes.
I want that power for myself.
Well, I'm super thankful for you, man. Super thankful for our relationship and thankful for all the great products and the service. The speed of which you get the products is unbelievable. I've actually tried multiple companies just to see what it was like to order from other companies. And the 3 to 4 day turnaround on almost everything is unbelievable. So even in a pinch, you can get stuff on the fly. It's a tremendous service. It really is.
And again, it's because we practice what we preach. We are a preparedness company. Yep. And because of that, we've made the commitment to always have product in stock. We've made the commitment to make sure that customers get it within 2 days. So regardless of where you're at in the country, if you order from My Patriot Supply, you'll get your order within 2 days. And it's because we've been strategic with our locations. We have 5 different warehouses that we run and operate under our umbrella.
Amazing.
And we do that to make sure that people that are living in the South and Florida, when they get that hurricane warning, hey, let's get your stuff. Let's get it there to you before emergencies, before the disaster happens. So again, you can have that peace of mind. And we do that. We do it to make sure that we can help people out the best way that we can.
That's fantastic. Well, hey, thanks for everything you do. Thanks for jumping back on. This is such a hot topic for us right now. And we're pushing people to get prepared, and more and more people are excited about it. But Joe, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate all you're doing to help our listeners.
Absolutely. Jimmy, I love it. I love what you guys do. I love what you preach. I love how you share more than just, basic tips and tricks, and I love the feeling that I get when I talk to you. So thank you so much for having me on. And I love what we do. If there's anything that I can do, by all means, call me up. You can call My Patriot Supply, ask for Joe. I'll answer the phone and help whoever needs help, because we're passionate about helping people.
You bet.
And the more people that are prepared, Jimmy, the better off everybody's going to be.
Yeah. And I'm going to put your cell phone in the notes here just because, that's a pretty big offer. And so, I'm teasing you, man, but super grateful for you.
Please do. I, I get texts from customers that I sold food to 6-7 years ago. They still text me, "Hey Joe, I'm ready for some more food."
Man,
Great, let's do it. It's not an inconvenience for me. I'm happy to help out in any way.
thanks, man. Well, God bless you, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, Jimmy, you be safe. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, bro.